right, y'all. Beats, Rhymes, y Comunidad, episode 6. As always, I am your host, Jersey City Jeff. Guys, we made it. This week, I'm reporting to you live from my hometown of Jersey City, New Jersey. As you can see, we got New York City right behind us, and we got a wonderful show for you this week. Joining us as our guest is Zenobia Simmons. Zenobia has made a legendary career for herself in the music industry, working with the likes of Smith& Wesson, The Arsonists, and Fat Joe, just to name a few. But she's also made a great career for herself as a spiritual guide. So I'm really excited to share this week's conversation with y'all. And I gotta say, man, it's been nonstop action since we touched down just over a week ago. Last week, we had the 37th annual Loisaida Festival. We had the Golden exhibit at the Keysmith Gallery, and we had the Fat Beat screening at Lincoln Center. The 37th annual Loisaida Festival, celebrating 37 years of Puerto Rican and Latino culture coming out of the Lower East Side in New York City. Salute to my brother Giraldo of the Siempre Pa'lante podcast, very good friend of the show. He was hosting the main stage at Loisaida this year, and he did a wonderful job, so salute to him. Got to give another shout out to my brother Deso, owner of the Piragua Art Space in the Lower East Side. He was honored as this year's Entrepreneur of the Year. Big shout out to our newest friend of the show, Eric Elijah Brumfield. He's one of the photographers who was featured in the Golden exhibit. Golden is a collaborative exhibit between 4 artists, including Eric Brumfield and Danny Hastings, the creative director of the Wu-Tang Clan. All photography from the 90s era of hip-hop. We actually spent the day with Eric, not only at the Keysmith Gallery, where he gave us some behind-the-scenes stories on how his photographs came together, but he actually joined us for the Fat Beat screening. So Fat Beats, of course, iconic hip-hop vinyl store, the last stop for hip-hop in New York City. They celebrated their 30th anniversary last year, and this year they had a first look at a docuseries that's going to be coming out, and we bumped into our guest this week there. So shout out to Zenobia. I'm sure we're going to be crossing paths many times this summer. Being that there's so much wonderful action going on in the city, I think it's only appropriate that for this week's mix, we hit you with some Beats, Rhymes, y Comunidad exclusive bonus material. So we got the conversation with Eric Brumfield, we got the Fat Beat screening, we got the Loisaida Festival. We'll hit you with a brief recap of those 3 events, and then we'll hop into our interview with Zenobia. We're going to be hitting you with as much coverage as we can as we hit other events. We got NEMS at SOBs. We got the Bushwick Collective. Thank you so much for tuning in this week, and we will see you soon.
This is Elijah Brumfield, and I am putting out a book named Golden. The mic. Listen up! Graffiti, hip-hop music, DJing. With all those elements, I got into photography. These pictures mean a lot to me because each one tells a story of where I was at during that time. And I think these stories, other people during that time can relate to. I want to share my stories with the people that actually appreciate this art. And that's why I consider this fine art. Consider it to be history. And I want to just tell the history.
Take me out with the fader.
With this careless pump, and in about 3 months, my stomach will be full. Trouble, yeah, something that I see now. Tell my pops, no way, no how. It'll break his heart, wreck his whole world. To have to grow up quick or what? Hey, hey, what daddy don't know or heard now? Come on, daddy's little girl. Hey, hey, come on, daddy's little girl. What daddy don't know or heard now? Daddy's little girl. It's on the mic right here. All the fellas, let me hear you say ho. Ho. And all my ladies say ow. Ow. Daddy trust me, yeah, daddy loves me. Cause I can feel it in his arm strong when he hugs me. But there comes a time when the angel must spread her wings. So I bow my head, I get deep into the swing of things. So the wrong y'all love me, cause mama knew everything. Mama sat home and sang the blues, and I regret the day that daddy took me out to play. But I'm a woman now. Hey, daddy, come on, y'all. What daddy don't know or heard now? But I'm daddy's little girl. Hey, what daddy don't know or heard now? Daddy's little girl. I'm like, here, y'all don't know.
Beats, Rhymes, y Comunidad. Welcome to yet another episode. As always, I am your host, Jersey City Jeff, and today I am joined by Eric Brumfield. How you doing?
How you doing? Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Thank you for having me. I mean, here we are at the Keysmith Gallery, man. I didn't even realize I was going to pull up the other night, man. And I came with G, but it was amazing with everybody here and the environment and stuff like that, man. So thank you for having us here.
And that's what it's all about bringing people together. That's what hip hop is about. It's about building community.
The funny thing that I noticed is that a lot of the dope people that I saw just being here a couple of nights ago
this wasn't their first time.
Right. It's a show that you have.
Everybody's been coming back multiple times, it seems. Yeah.
Right. It's a good thing. Sometimes people want to come in just how you came in today. It's just like quiet, just to take in the art, to appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then so it represents both times, the good times and the times you just study the mathematics, with each piece.
One of my first questions was going to be what came first, the chicken or the egg? Because I know there's the book and now we have the exhibit. But you mentioned to me while we were walking around earlier that you've been promoting the book for like 10 years now. So when did the concept of the book first come to life?
I'll be honest with you, it came out when me and Sane used to visit Harry Chiffon in his studio.
Really?
Back in the days, I used to go visit Harry Chiffon and he just showed us his collection.
Yeah.
And I used to tell Sane, I'm like, yo, this guy is super famous for taking pictures, right? We should do our own books and we can become famous. That's what it's all about, is becoming famous. And I was like, yo, how this guy's famous, man? Like, I was a little kid and I was just like, he lived in a loft in Soho. So that was big for me, coming from Washington Heights, visiting him.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it inspired me to be like, all right, and everybody wanted to be in the next Subway Art too. He came out with Subway Art. Shout outs to Martha Cooper also, who I saw him last week.
Yes.
We were working on some things together.
Nice.
And Harry Chiffon. So that was like the hip hop Bible back then. It was basically the first time a publisher put out a book of hip hop graffiti.
Okay.
So back then, the writers were like, yo, how can we get on graffiti? So we are too, and we used to visit. So that's what put the concept together while we put together a book.
Yeah.
And then that's how I started taking pictures. It was really through graffiti.
Right.
I was taking pictures of Sane's work, Smith's work, my work, other graffiti artists that we love, like John 156, the Tap Crew.
Yeah.
Shout outs to Bio, CLD, Wayne Crew, TDS, the Death Squad. So these are crews that we used to take pictures of and make our little black books and make our photo albums. So that's how it started. What worked with me, I just had a theme already.
Yeah.
And this is just my story of my life. Like this piece here, it's like, Dirty Bastard wanted to leave the video set so bad because he didn't understand when we were finished shooting, we had to break down the camera. You see how your camera is just, we actually had film. We're shooting film that day. There's no such thing as that.
Right.
So that took time. It took a whole crew to change film, and to transfer and stuff like that. And the Wu-Tang did to
How were you brought on to this project?
Well, basically, I worked with Diane Martell. I was her assistant, working with her. And then I became a treatment writer. I was writing her treatments for her.
Wow.
And I was getting a piece of the budget back then. So I was like her head right hand assistant, basically. She taught me everything, how to frame, how to crop. So I give a lot of respect to Diane for teaching me about cropping, because when she cropped the frame, she said cropping is about everything because it really makes the star about how you crop. So that's how I learned how to crop my frames. And each one, I was thinking about being like the hip hop Gordon Parks back then. So I was like, I wanted each frame to be perfect, each shot to be perfect. As you see, the difference, these shots are like, they're all kind of looking at me compared to like some other photography, it's more like maybe like a paparazzi style. This one right here, this one's called Young Run. I did this in LA, and it was for a video called, he featured a video called Why Are We World So Crew. Yeah, World So Crew featuring Flesh and Bone. So I had a chance to work with him. I was usually in charge of talent, so right where he's standing, the director marked the spot where she wanted to run. And we're actually framing the picture. He's actually performing right here. So she said, I need him to perform right here so we got the perspective of the alley. This is downtown LA.
So these are video shoots for like music videos,
Yeah, it's
right?
like music video shoots. And,
Love it.
I'm there, I'm there with them. I had to go get him, and when I went to go get him in his limo, he was with his wife.
Yeah.
And I think his wife, still today, was a beautiful young lady. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. It's an amazing show.
Oh, thank you. and his wife was beautiful. And then so when I went to go grab him, I was kind of like, I stared at his wife, like I was in awe. Like he was, so that's why I was like this. I was like, you know, like a young kid. And he kind of saw me look at his wife. He was like, "Yo, wake up, kid! Wake up!"
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh, yo, my bad." I was like, "My bad, everybody." And I said, "Hey, I got come follow me. You know, we're ready to shoot you." So he follows me, and he's looking at me like he's a little punk looking at my wife. You know, so I got up. So I'm sitting here, and I showed him about your spot's right here, and I'm like standing like right here next to him, and the camera's over there, so they're getting him in focus. And I said, "Hey, you mind if I take a shot of you?" And he said, "Yeah, all right."
Go for it.
I just went for it. And I think this was actually these black and whites were taken by Olympus OMG, old school. So I focused it, took the picture.
And the unique thing about these is that they're printed on steel. Talk a little bit about the decision to do that.
Well, that was actually inspired by the gallery itself. Before we were going to just do large prints, and then Key gave me a call and he said he saw prints on steel that thought would be amazing and a different touch to the gallery and to the show, and I thought that was a great idea.
Right.
So basically, and it's never been done before. I've never done it before, and I wanted to do something different. Since I was going to be the headliner of the show, I wanted to do something different than just having them in the frame. So first thing was getting them printed on steel. Shout outs to the Priya Sinha.
What would you describe as being your earliest memory of Community?
Once again, I think that comes from graffiti first, because we all had crews, and that crew gave you some type of status in the streets. So that meant something back then. I'm allowed. I got a made man gave me permission to put up their crew where there's no denying it. It was no faking it. It was just like, yeah, I'm officially down. So I think that was the first way. That was the first thing. The music aspect, I think that was part of the community also, where it's the first time you actually feel the same feeling you get as being an MC. Right. You know what I'm saying? When you drop a certain record. Yeah. Back then I was dropping, one of the first DJs that played Dot's Effect, They Want Effect. Imagine and playing that bass line. Doom, you know what I mean? And they were like, oh. And I think that's why I got really in love with the game and collecting records, and I got into downtown DJ market with Stretch Armstrong.
Salute to Stretch Armstrong, by the way. I think he's actually going to be at this screening, at this fabulous screening for the documentary.
Yeah, a lot of people actually going to be.
Yeah, I'm sure you must have spent a lot of time in that fabulous, no?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we used to get our records there. A lot of DJs back then. Every Friday we used to go to the record labels, and they used to give us records, and that's how I met Bobby. Bobby used to give me records, so he gave me Slam he gave me Georgia Guns Up in the Air for the first time. He gave me Redman Tonight's the Night first. Yeah. So he's like, and he knew I was DJ with Stretch, so he was like, well, here, break these records for me. He was working at Def Jam at the time, doing street promotions. I had classic DJs doing the opening night for us, and that's part of the golden movement. Always having a classic DJ like a Red Alert, Kid Capri, give us that feeling. So that's what this whole thing is about righteousness, good times, and taking the good times and taking it international. That's what we're trying to do here at Golden.
There you go. Lead the people to the water, man. Let them know where they can find you, man. Speaking of shout yourself out.
Oh, absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at 1212 Eric B. We are the Golden Group. On Instagram also.
Can we get the book? Is there
there's a link at the book. Instagram book also is Golden the Book. That's on Instagram also. It leads you to a link where you can purchase the book. So you can get that also. Thank you so much.
Thank you, bro. Thank you so much for joining me, man. Pete's Ramsey, Comunidad, Eric. We at the Golden Exhibit, Keith Smith Gallery, LES. We'll see you next week, man.
Peace.
This new record store. I had a grand opening. It wasn't this amazing idea. whole record store. It was the lack of record stores which made Fat Beats open up, especially in hip hop. Because I knew the pain. So I was like, we can make this place the last stop. You don't have to go anywhere else. You just come here, you get all your hip hop. Fat Beats, the last stop for hip hop. On 9th Street between 1st and 2nd. Basement wasn't being used at the time. As a storefront, it doesn't have the visuals. They gave it to me for like $300. The rent being that low, I can survive for 4 months to see if this is gonna work. And that was the idea.
So how'd y'all feel seeing it for the first time?
That was dope. I've only saw a rough cut that didn't have all the bells and whistles. It looks great to see the footage and then also just see the names attached. See Rob up there and then have Rob Swift's name. And I'm watching this and I'm just thinking like how we just really we transformed all of this into our livelihoods. You know what I'm saying? It's like especially like with Rob and them were talking about. And Babu were talking about turntablism and the scene. Rob started out as a backbone of someone else. You know what I'm saying? He was the DJ for Akinelli. You know what I'm saying? Like Rock Raider was the DJ for Show and AG. Sinister was the DJ for Common. That was kind of the expectations of what you had back then.
I'm glad I get to say this again in front of Joe. I graduated in 1996, and that day, Joe, you mailed me a check for $500, and it was a royalty check for a VHS 30-minute documentary that John Carluccio, who's also in the film, directed and filmed, called Exercise. And it was basically a 30-minute X-Men documentary. And Joe's check from Fat Beats arrived in the mail the day I graduated college. Then the day after that, I got my degree. I got my degree from Baruch. So I had 2 pieces of paper, right? I had my degree from college, and I had this.
Rob Swift was just on the turntable, so don't come on here and you only been spinning for 3 weeks. So the DJs that would get on were really good. A lot of them surprised me. And it's funny because I opened up in July, and we developed such an aura with the DJs that it was October of that same year where we did the first DJ battle. So it was right there, and if you see, it's on the video, like to me at least, all the hot DJs in New York were part of the scene. They were there at that time. And you see those are all the first images of the store. So very, very thankful, and I'm grateful that I was able to take it this far and also do the deal with Rostrum Pacific and be able to see the company still keep going, on a different level now. So I'm very happy about that.
Beautiful thing.
Indeed, Mr. Wall. It's 1994. That means Into the Stage was out.
Then the first thing I realized was, these are some messed up steps. I know I'm gonna fall down these steps.
Accident waiting to happen.
But when you went in, it was like, it was straight hip hop. You know what I'm saying?
I didn't like Fat Beats because you couldn't steal from them. The stairs was an absolute trap, so I didn't like it.
You were not getting away.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah. That's the one thing I used to tell people, Fat Beats was the only store I never stole records from. Every other store I stole records from. Fat Beats, I respected them so much, I was not stealing no records from them. You know what I'm saying? But Fat Beats, the good thing about Fat Beats was, when you walked into Fat Beats, it was hip hop. And you wasn't that, from TV, this and that. Nah, use watch him catch something.
Surgeon General of Chilltown, New York, has determined that the sounds you're about to hear can be devastating to your ear.
Gracias, we need that support, mi gente, ya tú sabes, Comunidad. Big shout out to Jersey City Jeff. Ya tú sabes, Beats Rhymes en Comunidad. Los Side Inc. Mi gente, you're a little quiet. I gotta hear you, I gotta feel you. Make some noise, mi gente, DJ Beyond. So we got something special, because we always got the exclusives here at the Losaida Festival.
Muchas gracias, mi gente. Dios los bendiga.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Beats, Rhymes, y Comunidad. My name is Jersey City Jeff. I am your host. Guys, today I am joined by a very talented young lady. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to introduce you to Zenobia Simmons. Welcome to the show, young lady. How are we feeling today?
Thank you. I feel pretty good. I'm excited to talk to you. Yeah, this is dope. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So am I. So, before we even get into all of the greatness for today, coming fresh off of your weekend in Miami, visiting Drink Champs, doing a broadcast from out there, how did everything go?
So everything went great. The broadcast went amazing. It was so nice. We did. So four of us from the show: Cynical, Almitra, Alana, Queens Gets the Money, and Jazz. We all went down to Miami. So we got a chance to hang out, do some team building, soak up some sun. And then yeah, we broadcasted the show on Sunday. So it was good. We had a really good show. We had a great time. And then Drink Champs was amazing also, which we were there with Smith and Wesson.
You know, that was going to be my next question. So, was the Drink Champs thing that was a Smith and Wesson appearance? So excellent.
It really was. And it's interesting because, you were talking about some of my other background, but so I was Nori's, I think Vicky was his first publicist, but I definitely worked the War Report. Like the day, like I was Capone Noriega's
There
publicist.
you
That's why
go.
that's why I moved to New York actually, because Neil Levine owned Penalty, and I worked at Correct Records at the time,
Mhm.
and before that, I was at Priority.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, Neil moved me. Like he said, he wanted a publicist in New York, so I moved to New York to break the War Report album. So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
So, was Capone and Noriega your first like hip hop group that you worked with in a PR capacity?
no, not at all. Like no, I don't even remember what number they were.
Well, you know what? Well, before we start to peel back that onion, what is your earliest memory of community? What is your earliest memory of feeling a sense of belonging and that you were a part of something that is bigger than yourself?
So my earliest memories of community and a sense of belonging were spending time at my grandma's house with my cousins and my aunts and uncles and my grandmother and grandfather, of course, because I have I think 23 first cousins,
Okay.
somewhere in there on my mother, just on my mother's side.
Uh-huh.
She came from a huge family.
Yeah.
So during the summers, instead of daycare, they would drop all of us off at our grandma's house.
I love it.
So, oh, it was the best. It was amazing. So we were, running around, having adventures. It was very, little rascals. But yeah, that was my first sense of really feeling like I was a part of something, because then our with family, I would get to hear the stories about, my great grandfather and
Yeah.
how my grandparents met and how they eloped and, all of that and what we came from. So we
Mhm.
would just, I think at a very early age, I started learning about our family's really rich history. My grandmother would read coffee grinds. That's actually where I learned how to, how to read and like how to, do other stuff from my maternal grandmother. And then my paternal grandmother, her intuition was amazing, but she used her intuition of my dad's side of the family. They love to gamble. So she would have a poker game every Friday,
Yes.
try to hang out and help her get ready for that. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
those are my earliest memories of that, with is spending time with my family.
That's beautiful. That's such a great place for it to begin, too, right? Okay. So I'm going to take a stab in the dark and you let me know if I'm right or wrong.
Okay.
But being that you've been able to see and communicate with the spiritual realm,
from an
Uh-huh.
early age, your journey in terms of that began before your other career endeavors. Is that a safe statement to make?
No, that is very true. That is
Mhm.
100% true statement. Yeah, that part of my journey began. I don't even remember how old I was. I thought, and I've shared this before, but because like I said, my like both grandmas would always be like, I had a dream. Da, da, da. You know how they do that.
Yes, yes, I get it all the time too. Yes, your mother, your grandmother, like, oh, I had a
You
dream
didn't
about
you
this.
didn't do it. You didn't do anything. I had a dream you was gonna do something. Like what?
Uh-huh.
Wait.
Uh-huh.
So they both sides of both grandmothers especially, and my aunts and uncles too, but definitely my grandmothers, and my mother, they were very they relied heavily on intuition, and folklore, and were extremely spiritual
Mhm.
and religious. So I thought that when I started seeing things and experiencing things that were happening in another realm, I thought everybody did. Because when I would see spirits a lot of times when I was younger,
Mhm.
um, I thought that's what people meant when they said they had imaginary friends. To a kid, like I didn't realize until way later that
Mhm.
they were just, no, it was really an imaginary friend.
Yeah.
Because when I was doing it, I was really playing with somebody. Like I was, it was this girl, like I used to
Yeah.
play with all
Yeah.
the time, my little friend. And yeah, she was, I could see her.
Mhm.
And even my parents went so far. They had amazing parents, but they would go so far as to say, "Is she in the car? Is she in the car? Does she want to come?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they would, get into it. So I really thought that that's what everybody was experiencing when they were playing with their imaginary friends.
So at what point in your childhood did either you or someone close to you say, "Hey, Z's got like a real gift here and we need to nurture and develop this gift and help it grow."
You know what? I actually don't think that happened specifically in my childhood. I
Uh-huh.
think my granny, we called her granny. She's my paternal grandmother.
Uh-huh.
I believe she would come and ask me, and I think I'm remembering the story correctly, but because she played the numbers, she
Okay.
would always play her dreams.
Yes.
Remember, I would tell her about and I remember she would ask me like, what? She wouldn't ask if I dreamt specific. No, sometimes she would. Later, she started asking me that if I dreamt specific numbers.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so I would say her, and I was probably I would. It was before I went to. It was definitely before. I think pre-K, either
Okay.
before pre-K or pre-K. And she used to talk like, yeah, we would talk about, and she would ask me, what did you dream? And I would say, great, I dreamed, and then we would talk, and then she would play them and stuff. Yeah, so I think, yeah, probably I guess when I was at Montessori.
It kind of reminded me of how we've seen it being depicted in media and in pop culture, right? Like I think about soul food and like how the grandmother would like, oh, I dreamt with the fishes, and it's like, oh, so that means
Somebody's
somebody's about to
pregnant.
be pregnant. Love that. Take
Yes.
us on the journey from there to becoming, getting on Lifetime TV and being on America's Psychic Challenge. Like, what was the journey from there to there like?
Well, I actually got into tarot cards.
Mhm.
And as you said, that journey began when I worked at Street Knowledge, believe it
Okay.
or not. Because when I lived in LA, I worked at Street Knowledge, and I worked with Heather. And shout out to my good friend now to this day, Heather Wesley. And she would get readings. And I was so
Mhm.
fascinated by her readings because I knew about tarot from my dad because we would watch. My dad was a huge James Bond fan. So
Okay.
I've seen every James Bond movie,
Uh-huh.
every single one, and we would watch them together. That was our thing. Like we
Mhm.
would watch them as a family, but me and my dad really got deep in, like It was a whole thing. And then I discovered they were novels, so I read a couple, started reading them, and that was our thing. And I remember the movie with Jane Seymour, Live and Let Die, and she was a tarot card reader.
There you go.
And and it's so funny, it's so crazy when I watched that movie later. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I really kind of based my whole life a little bit around that ing without knowing it. Like it's
Uh-huh.
very, like the style I loved. I mean, and the movie was extremely racist. Watching it later, it did not hold up, but there were some good parts in it. They
Yeah.
were uptown in Harlem a lot. I'm always uptown.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
went to Haiti. I love to travel. I've never been there. I love to travel,
Yeah.
and we were into voodoo and working with the
Right.
orchestras and also and just mixing different kind of religious and spiritual tropes.
Dig it.
But so that's how I knew about the tarot cards. But
Gotcha.
I didn't know how to read them until Heather started getting readings. And there was an online version of tarot cards.
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing it at the office, and everybody was like, damn, you're really good at this. Like you're a little like the way that you're doing it, it's not like this is some other stuff. This isn't the way the program is saying to do it.
Yeah.
So that intrigued me. And then I just, got into it and just started doing it. And I remember the first reading I ever did for someone was for my friend Dominic Dixie. Shout out to him.
Uh-huh.
Um, he came to visit me in New York, and we're both from Indiana, Fort Wayne, Indiana. And so asked me about him, and I said, "Oh yeah, I started doing them, but I don't really know how to read them that well." And so he said, "Here, why don't you do a reading for me?" So I did it, and I had to use the book, and he, was very impressed.
Right.
So that made me feel like, all right, I could, because the stuff that I was seeing, he didn't tell me.
Right.
Like there was no way that I could have, because
That
it
you
was
could have
about
known. Right.
the stuff that was happening in his work life in the present.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really started it. And then I just started I started doing readings for my friends and really getting into the cards and memorizing them. And there was this tarot calendar by a company called Lulin. I don't know if they still make it, but they had a thing in there where every day they gave you a different card
Right.
to study and read and focus, and then every month they gave you a different deck and then taught you and taught a different layout.
Right.
So when I was in on that part of my journey,
Mm-hmm.
every morning I would devote 2 hours at least,
Wow.
hour and change to just studying, like seeing what information I got,
Yep.
trying different things, messing with the pendulum, all like doing all that stuff.
Yes. Yes.
And that started it. And then I met my friend Hattie, and Hattie Parker. She was a tarot reader as well as an astrologer.
Mm-hmm.
And she hired me to do readings at Philip Glass's studio, which was, crazy. He's this huge producer, and so the readings I was doing, the woman who booked it,
Mm-hmm.
she, because it was wintertime, so I wore my mink. It's cold.
Right.
And she had
Right.
a thing about fur. Hattie
Uh-huh.
told me later. So
Uh-huh.
she put me way in the back, like, oh, no one can see her in this mink coat.
Yeah.
But then people kept finding me, and I had a line. And so then I started, just getting booked. I just kept getting booked for it. And Hattie is the person that said, they're doing auditions for this show on Lifetime. I think you should do it. And
Gotcha.
then she sent me the information, and I went and I went and tried out for the show, and because I was working at EMI at the
Mm-hmm.
time,
Mm-hmm.
and I went and tried out for the show on my lunch break.
All right. See, so I get it. So the spirituality side definitely came first because this is what I'm really
Oh
trying to
yeah,
hone in on. So you're in Indiana, you move out to LA, right?
yes,
And then you mentioned you were working at Street Knowledge. What
yeah.
define that for anyone who might not be familiar with what Street Knowledge is or was?
So Street Knowledge was Ice Cube's company.
There you go.
Ice Cube and Pat Charbonnet.
Okay.
And Pat Pat was the publicist, actually. So this is more intersection for NWA.
Got you.
That was what she did.
Uh-huh.
Pat and Cube clicked so hard, she broke down a lot of music industry stuff for him. And so her thing was, well, if you are writing the majority of the rhymes, I mean, Ren was writing too, and but Cube was writing for a lot of it.
Dig it.
Like,
And
yeah, Ren wrote all his rhymes too. Let's be very clear on that.
yes.
But Cube wrote a lot for for Dre.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, he was ghostwriting. So
Yeah.
then Pat broke
Big
it
time.
down like, what you're not, you should be getting more of the money.
Right.
At least the
Right.
publishers was going on. And so
Exactly.
so he and Pat started a company, and the
Mm-hmm.
company was Street Knowledge. And
Mm-hmm.
then Street Knowledge was a management production company. There was a studio downstairs, a recording studio, and then upstairs were the offices. And that's when they got into the movie business.
Right.
And so I started working at Street Knowledge the month before Friday came out.
Wow.
It was an
Holy
incredible time. Incredible
holy
time.
smokes.
Then they got the deal with New Line. So then
Mm-hmm.
because I was the receptionist. So I was like the
Okay.
receptionist, the administrative assistant,
Office manager, like
manager.
all the
There's
things.
only 4 people in the office, but I still was
Uh-huh.
the I still the
Running shit. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
So we moved to Venice, and then that's when all the other movies came in, Dangerous Ground and Anaconda, and
Mm-hmm.
I would read the scripts.
Yeah.
That's because at first I was just copying the scripts. And then, Pat would ask me, well, what did you think? And I was like, well, I think this part just did this. So then now, I'm getting to do notes and stuff on the script. And
Uh-huh.
then and I also was writing back then. I was a journalist.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so then I would get to, then it got to the point where she was now, because it was me, Heather Wesley, Amik Richards, shout out to them, and Pat. So then Pat started asking us about music, because Pat's like she's a family. She's a grown woman.
Mm-hmm.
She
Mm-hmm.
she knew, but she wasn't gonna be it. I think of it the way now, like I don't know who the next 18-year-old rapper is. Like I have no idea who that is. I don't know nothing about that. So Pat asked us. So then we were like, oh, this is dope, this is dope. Blah, blah, blah. So then
Mm-hmm.
now we start doing now we're doing the soundtracks.
Yeah.
So it was an exciting time. It was really good
Absolutely.
time up there. And I got so both of those things were happening at the same time. I was getting deep into the tarot cards and then working at Street Knowledge. And
Working
then
at
that's
Street
also
Knowledge.
when I started working at the Beat on the radio.
Was the catalyst for you to make the move from Indiana out to LA? Was it to pursue working in music and working in PR and stuff like that? Or what was the motivation there?
College. I went to
College.
FINA. I went to the Fashion Institute where they shoot
Okay.
project work in LA.
Uh-huh.
And it was in LA. And I wanted to, because I got into a couple of different colleges, but I
Uh-huh.
really wanted I wanted to see what LA was like. That was exciting and dope. So no, I
Yes.
wasn't even tripping off the music industry. I
Uh-huh.
moved to LA to go to college and become a fashion designer.
There you
That
go. So
was
that was the initial pursuit.
Yeah, I wanted to be a hip hop fashion designer.
A hip hop fashion designer. I love it. And then so what was it like navigating that world and how did it impact where you ultimately ended up landing? Because I feel like that happens to a lot of us, right? Like we go to pursue one thing and then we end up, veering into another path and
Now that I look at it, I experienced a lot of racism there
mm,
but not, I won't say the institution as a whole, just some of the teachers, some of the professors that I worked with.
yes.
And I understand where they were coming from, but they kept this one my professor in fashion design. I think it was fashion design 101 or some shit like that. But
Uh-huh.
she kept trying to say her thing was, why do you keep designing for the same person? Like, why do you keep trying to just make hip hop clothes? And I was like,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
that's what I wear.
That's
That's
what I
me.
yeah,
So
that's what I
what I
want
do.
to do.
Stop trying to, stop trying to curtail my creativity. But her
Yeah.
thing was, you have to also be able to design for couture and do this and that. So I get what she was
Right.
saying, but she would really, in my opinion, she was a little harder on me because her thing was, you keep doing the same design. You're not just
Right.
not the same design, but the same client.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is now. I had a perspective way back then.
Correct. Yeah, and I think it also speaks to your focus on an area that you saw something early that this is emerging, this is on the cutting edge, and this is where I'd like to focus my time mastering that rather than all these other avenues that have already blown up. They've already got the backing and support of, like, big names and stuff like that. I know that there's something good here, and yet let me cook, that type of
Because it
thing,
didn't exist.
because it didn't
Because that was
exist.
the thing. Because
Right.
we had to buy boy clothes.
Right, right.
A
She didn't
lot.
see the value in spending your time and investing your time there.
Because how could she? That's what, and
Right.
that's another thing I think about the different generations, because
Hmm.
she used to design for the Pointer Sisters. That
Oh,
was
wow.
right. Like,
Wow.
the Pointer Sisters were fly.
Yeah.
But then that was her perspective. So she didn't even put as much value, I think, on hip hop as I did.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And this was like, I went to college in 88. I graduated in 88. So
Hmm.
this was real early.
I was
Like, this
three.
was baby. So the clothes that we were wearing, it was really just 90s clothes.
Yes.
Well, like, they were more or late 80s,
Right.
clothes. And
Right.
then, and I was a huge house head. So
Yeah.
then I would, but back then, house and hip hop, there was
We're
even
hand in
hip,
hand.
it was a whole genre.
Right.
So the way that we dressed, and I was also real, because I had gone to the Art Institute. So then I was hanging with the goth kids. So my
Mm.
style was like a combination of all three of those things. And then, because I was from Indiana, I was kind of a mall rat. So it was
There you go.
all those things, but I would mix them together.
Yep.
And
Yep.
in my mind, I was fly.
Hell yeah. Shit. Sounds fly.
But back then, it just looked weird. And
Yeah.
she had
You
no
didn't
point
get
of,
it.
well, for any of that except for the mall bullshit. But
Yep.
she
Yep.
she didn't know about, I'm sure she didn't really know about Deep House. This
Yeah. Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
because
Didn't
it was
make
just
any
kind of
sense to her.
emerging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So she would just look at my stuff like,
Would
you.
you would you say that that experience is maybe the inverse of your first experience with community, feeling like that sense of belonging? And this is like, now you're out in the real world and you're experiencing this, low key sense of racism, right? Is that safe to say, like, that's your first experience with the opposite feeling, the feeling of exclusion, the feeling of not belonging, right?
Well, yes. I mean, yes and no, because I also, coming from Indiana, which is very white, and I
Yeah.
grew up in the suburbs.
Yep.
So that was the first. We were the first black family on my block. Then some more black people moved in next door, and that was it.
Yeah.
So that was my first experience when I would walk around the neighborhood.
The neighborhood. Yes, yes, yes.
It was super. They not like us. Like going from my grandma's house to where everybody's black to my house,
Right.
nobody was black but
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
That was the first. But yes, in that setting, absolutely, because
Mhm.
there weren't that many black students at FIDM.
Right.
There were, but not it wasn't a lot. And then most of the guys that went there were gay. So then that also got me into, like gay culture and, like walking and,
Mm-hmm.
ballroom, and they got me into that.
Yeah.
So, and that was, I would say, the second place where I felt extremely accepted. Cause they, like it was just like, look, just be fly, whatever,
100%.
just be
Yeah.
fly,
Yeah.
and
Just be you.
just be you.
Just
So
be
that
you.
was
Yeah.
my other sense of community, and most of my friends, back then, well, I always had a bunch of different friends, but I went to a lot of gay clubs because I would go out with them. So
Yep.
then, like I would also be looking at that fashion and how they would, work it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it was good. And back then I also started, so I would go to gay clubs, house clubs, and hip hop clubs, but we all hung out together.
Together. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a whole, it was a scene. That was my first job, official hip hop job. I worked at Rap Sheet. It was a news hip hop newspaper. It was
Wow.
like a real like, newspaper, but it was just all hip hop. Back then, they used to do conferences, like they had music conferences, like New Music Seminar,
Yep. Yep.
um, all those different conferences, and so, and that's how I met Daryl James, who started Rap Sheet. And yeah, and I managed a singer at the time, Celeste. uh, Shout out to C Note. And yeah, he said that he's like, well, if you two, and he worked with so many record labels. So
Mm-hmm.
he's like, look, if you guys move to LA, he told me I can get you a job as an editorial assistant. I'll hire you.
Uh-huh.
And then I'll help you with Celeste, and you can manage her and get her a record deal. And so the second time I moved back to LA, I absolutely moved for the music business, to be in the music business
Right.
for sure. And then that second time around, I went from Rap Sheet to Street Knowledge to
Mm-hmm.
Priority to Correct, and then to Penalty, which is to New York.
Got you. Got you. And at any point during this momentum with your career
Mhm.
in music, um, at what point was the appearance on the Lifetime Network, and did that have an impact on your trajectory in music? Like, was there any crossover between what you were doing on the spiritual side of things with the music stuff?
Oh, for sure, for
Uh-huh.
sure. So it was when I worked at EMI. That's when I worked with Neil Levine again. He
Yeah.
hired me back. And I was working. We had Fat Joe. We
Okay.
had make we had because and Fat Joe did 2 albums with us. So
Wow.
it was Jose and then Elephant in the Room. And then
Wow.
and during that time there, Fat Joe did Make It Rain. That changed the
That
game.
changed
Oh,
it. Oh shit. Yep.
and I'd always known, like I had known Joe for a long time because I helped my best friend at the time. Her name was Crystal Isaacs. She worked at Atlantic, so
Mhm.
she would bring me in to help with. So like we would drive Fat Joe in the Terror Squad. Like when we would do like the DC, Maryland, Virginia runs, we would fit like I would drive one SUV and she would drive the other one. So
Wow.
we spent a lot of time with them. Yeah, met Remy when she was like in high school and shit.
Yeah. 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 Oh my
Those were good times.
God.
And by then I was very active with tarot cards.
Uh-huh.
So would ask me like there were different um groups and artists and stuff. They would ask me like, "How's the album gonna do? Let's see. Like, look at the cards. Let me know what's going on."
Yep. Yep. That's
So
amazing. Okay. So
yeah.
yeah, so it's definitely woven in,
Oh
and
yeah,
I
for
love
sure.
that. I love
Yeah.
that.
People would come to my office at EMI and like knock on the door. Can you do a reading for me real quick?
My gosh.
And I would try. Yeah, I'd be like, okay, but you got to pay cash.
Yep. Yep. I don't I
The
don't
first,
take no IOUs. I love
I
it.
mean, my homie.
That's a good segue into us talking a little bit about hip hop and spirituality. How do
Mm.
you view the relationship between the two, and how can the two sort of play into to amplify their purpose, right? Because I feel like community is intrinsically woven into hip hop, right? Because
Yeah.
hip hop was born out of community, right? And I think spirituality helps amplify that in a way. But I think that you probably have a better sense of what that relationship is. So what does it look like through your lens?
Well, I mean, so to me, I think there's always been a deep connection because, as I said, when, back in the 80s, conscious hip hop was very popular.
Yes.
So it was strongly woven in. Then we got away from that.
Hmm.
And now I think there's a resurgence
Yes.
coming back, just in music, period. There's more of of discussion and inclusion of spirituality.
Hmm. Hmm.
For me, I've always like if it I mean, if we have those now it's different because I'm so far along in my career. But back then I would definitely, if it didn't feel right, I wouldn't work it or do it.
Right.
I would just, like, my spirit wouldn't let me do it. I was like,
Mm.
I
Yeah.
gotta walk away. And I remember there was an artist, he didn't really blow up, but the people the people that wanted to hire me, they worked in the music industry also at a record label.
Hmm.
And they took the video, like that's how long ago it was. They had to send the video to me so I could watch it in the VCR. And I was saying, okay, and I said in my head, and I told my boyfriend at the time, if these dudes are in the video,
Uh-huh.
I'm not working this.
No for me, dog.
And they were, and I was like, nah. I gave them the money back.
Yeah.
Well, looking back, I don't know if I would have done that now, but
Have there been artists who have approached you in their careers to not just be like, how's the album gonna do, but like, what do I need to do for my own personal growth? How do I need to tap into my own spirituality just to help me get right and be better within the hip hop community, to be a better contributor to the hip hop community?
for sure, yes.
Yeah.
There's a ton,
Yeah.
have asked that, or asked what do I feel like? What's the vibes?
Yeah.
What do I need to focus on? So yeah, I've done that and
Yeah.
helped them navigate. And I think more artists should do that. There
Yeah.
should be much more spiritual accountability and awareness, and because that's what I mean when like starting in the like starting in the music industry, my professional start,
Hmm.
and in LA, that was the height of, like death row and like just
Yep.
disrespect. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah. Like you hit
Like
the
I said,
ground running. You literally hit the ground running, man. Like to have that street knowledge be the start for you is like,
yeah,
where else am I gonna go?
yeah.
Like,
But at the same time, Cube still, he's got songs like A Bitch is a Bitch, and,
right. Then
talking
you have that part. Right.
because it's what
Yeah.
it is. That's what I
Yeah.
mean. It was a part of it. It's so wound. It's weaved into it, which I
Mhm.
don't think is right,
Right.
but it's a part, that is a part of it. It's a
It's
part of pop culture,
the yin,
especially hip hop.
the yin and yang of hip hop, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it should be more spiritually aware and much more balanced.
Well, that's great that at least, you were able to bring that to your work in music, right? And I'm sure that a lot of artists have benefited from your gift, and hip hop thanks you for that, right? Because
That's so,
it helps to keep us right, you know?
oh,
So
so,
you also happen to work pretty closely with the arsonists, is that correct?
oh yeah, I
Oh
love the
yeah.
arsonist.
So
My- I
I've
love
that's a little Pandora's box of questions for me to open up for this part right here, because I have already interviewed both Q Unique and Swell for the show.
I
Um
love
so and you know how much I love our brother Destroy. So tell me what that experience was like. How did it begin working with the arsonist, and what were you brought into the fold to help achieve?
I love the
Yeah.
arsonist. I see the shirt.
Yes.
There you go. All the arsonist vinyl. But the
Uh-huh.
way that I first saw the arsonist, they were perform. I just moved to New York. That summer, and
Uh-huh.
they were performing at Rocksteady. And it was like, that's when it was like 9 of them or something. There's a million
Yep.
people with the arsonists.
Yep.
And I saw them, and I was thinking they are so dope. Oh my God, they're incredible. They're dope. They're the shit. And then I forget, how did I meet them? I don't even remember. I think I met Q first. I met Q Unique first.
You first.
And I got hired to be their publicist because this is what happened, because Penalty closed.
Okay.
And then I always had my own independent PR company, even when I would work at labels.
Uh-huh.
So I got hired to be the arsonist publicist.
Got
And
it.
we worked together so closely and so hard, they asked me if I wanted to manage them.
Uh-huh.
And of course I said yes, because
Yes.
I love them.
Yeah.
So then I was managing them. And so yeah, I'm so proud of all of them, and to see the growth, because when we started working together, they were kids.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
in their
Yeah.
20s. I think Swell was maybe like 22.
And that's the point that Q makes in their trajectory and how they kind of evolved as a group was like he knows he's keenly aware of how young they were when they really hit, and
Yes.
kind of wishes that they had the direction of more of an elder to sort of be like, hey guys, this is what you need to be focused on.
Yeah.
So what was it like? I gotta ask, what was it like working with Destroy? Because you know that guy's head is like a mile a minute. He's over here, he's over there at the same time.
Destroy has always been like that. He's always been crazy and very animated, and I love him for it. And he had that same energy. And
Mhm.
I think now he's learned to direct it so much better to the
Right.
camera. He was
Yeah.
born to be on camera.
He
But
sure was.
no,
Yeah.
oh my God, wrangling them, Jesus. It was like, sometimes it was like trying to wrangle cats.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they got in a fight
Yeah.
on tour. I was so mad at them.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yep.
Europe.
Yep.
Oh my God. I was
Yeah.
that's when we broke up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't with y'all. I don't know.
Yeah.
Y'all over here.
Yeah. The wildest. Yeah.
Me,
Wild.
I have kids. And you got me, because I got a call at like 2 in the morning.
Yep. Yep.
I was so mad at them.
My
But I
goodness.
love them. And we've
Yeah.
gone past that. But no, it was rough.
Yeah.
But Q was always extremely business oriented.
Dig it.
He had his head in the game from
Yeah.
the beginning. He always had a
Yeah.
vision. He had a plan. He knew what it
He
was.
knew what he wanted to do. Dig it.
Always extremely focused. And he was like the dad. He
Okay.
was, because he would be like, look, he would have to call him like one on one, like, listen,
Cut it
dude,
out. Yeah.
what you doing? Freestyle was the pin,
Uh-huh.
like ill rhymes. Oh my God.
Yep.
But asking him to show up at 12 for an interview, you rolling the dice.
Dig it. Dig it. Yeah.
But he would do it. But
Yep.
it was,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was always Q. Q was on top of shit all the time.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, do not adjust your television sets. Okay, you may have noticed a quick costume change, right? But that's simply because this young lady that I have with me today is just a treasure trove of gems and information. So we didn't quite get to cover everything that I wanted to in this initial conversation, which I'm sure there's going to end up being a part two. So anyway, I think Z, where we left off, talking about these young Thundercats called the Arsonists back in their heyday, right? And to quote you, they were wrangling them was like trying to wrangle a bunch of cats. So with that in mind, I gotta ask, at any point in their growth, whether it be during their time as a group or as they began to continue growing in their personal journeys, right? As in their individual careers, right? Did any of the arsonists turn to you for some of that spiritual guidance that you've helped a lot of folks out with in your career? Or was it just like maybe they were too young at the time and needed some space to grow?
No, I don't even think they knew I did that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, they had no
So
idea.
they wasn't even on game yet.
No, they did well, and no, they didn't know. But also, um, I like I let people know that I do that, but we never had those conversations. But later,
Mhm.
Destroy absolutely tried to get me, not that he came to me for stuff, but he tried to get me
Mhm.
on some TV opportunities where they wanted a psychic.
Ah, okay. So once he became aware of the full repertoire, he was like,
Yeah,
"Yo, let's put you on some stuff where they're looking for people like you."
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. 100,000%. And he always looks out like that. I
yeah.
mean, we always looked out for each other, but that's so, yeah, I never thought about that. They didn't even really know I did that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Nope, that's so funny. But yeah, them, like a lot of the artists that I worked with, like them, Nori, Fat Joe,
Hmm.
Cube,
Yeah.
yeah, they had no idea that was another side of what I did.
So now that you're kind of running down the list again, because this is another thing that I wanted to make sure that we covered and edified in its completeness.
Yeah,
Um, Street knowledge, EMI. Let's just run down the list real quick of every hip hop artist that you've worked with in your career. Got
yikes.
Cube, we got Fat Joe, we got Arsonist,
Snoop,
Snoop,
Nori,
Nori,
Capone, CNN,
CNN,
Cardan.
Cardan.
Cardan wrote Hot in Here.
Yes.
Cardan is dope. But yeah, Cardan, Lord Finesse,
Or finesse, DITC.
yep, DITC. Who else? There's so many. It's crazy. Like there's so many people. Graph,
Graph.
Jazzy Joyce. I managed. Shout out to Jazzy always. I managed her for a minute. Um, who else did I do publicity for? There's so many people. I almost forget. I mean, it's odd to say that, but I kind of forget. But I mean, my roster now, I know off the top of my head.
Right, because now we're bringing us to the present. We got Manny Fresh, right?
Yeah, we love Manny.
Working very
Gats.
closely with Smith and Wesson, right?
Gats. And Weston, for
Okay.
sure. All day, every day. Gats, an
Mhm.
amazing artist that's coming out. He's actually originally from Tampa.
Oh wow.
In
My
LA
goodness.
now. He's the shit. He's got a new video coming out, White Bronco. It should be coming out it's coming out tomorrow, actually at midnight.
Yeah, don't sleep on the Tampa hip hop scene, by the way. I've only been out here 4 years, but I've gotten to connect with DJ Sandman. He's got Illsboro Records, which is another talented artist under that umbrella. And I
Mhm.
mean, I kind of see it as uh, there's a little bit of a small, medium, large theme going here where it's like Tampa's small, Orlando's medium, and then Miami's like, large. Would you agree with that?
I would. I would.
Yeah.
But I think the interesting thing, bringing it back around to Dochi,
Uh-huh.
who,
Yes. Yes.
then it all comes back around. Because
Yep.
now
Repping for
she,
the swamp.
she's Dada over
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Dochi Supreme. Uh,
Hmm.
who else that I'm trying to think of who else I work. There's so many artists I work. West Side Connection.
Wow.
Uh, I work with who else? Damn, this R&B. Oh, and another one of my current hip hop artists. His name is Fee. He's also really dope.
Hmm.
He's out of Jersey, Jersey City, Jeff. He's out of
Jersey City Jeff, man, all day, man. You know where we from.
yeah, he's out of Jersey. Um, damn, who else? I mean, there are so many people that I've worked with. And just through, because I've also worked with a number of different labels, Chino XL,
Oh my gosh.
Heart Forever.
Rest in power, Chino XL. My
Yeah,
goodness.
always, always. Who else did I work with? Because that's what I mean. Like, there's been so many people, and I worked for a number of different record labels also. Oh,
Yes.
and Rashida. I did
Okay.
publicity for her, and then when she was in Peach Candy with Candy,
Hmm.
I was helping out with publicity for Peach Candy. But it's interesting because growing up, I didn't realize, I never knew that there were specific jobs in music. I didn't know about all that. Like I didn't know what I didn't know what an A&R was when I was in middle school and high school to even say that I wanted to do that.
Okay, so see now you're touching on the real gem here that I think could offer a lot of listeners some game, right? Especially for those who already have dreams and aspirations of pursuing a career in music. One of the things that stood out to me as you described your career in music is that you always had your consultancy, even though you had your 9 to 5 with whatever record label you was working with, you had your consultancy. So, at which point in your career did you begin to connect the dots and say, "Hey, I need to have my own shit like on the side while I am doing this music thing"? And
Yeah.
what was your consultancy and what were your service offerings?
So when I went to LA, and I started just going out,
Mhm.
that's when I realized, wow, there's different positions in music, like A&R, marketing, publicity, blah, blah, blah. Like I didn't even know what that was just as a fan. But then I discovered what these people did and that all everything that it took to make a record or make a record label successful.
Right, right,
Lesson that I got from them was, look, this label stuff, it can come and go.
right,
But whatever you're doing, that's what people are going to mess with. So you always need to have something popping.
right,
So that's where I learned you always have to have your own company. There's a huge gap because the education needs to be consistent and constant.
right, right. Because
So
things are
now
always changing.
there you go.
Yeah.
Because like I said the internet did not exist when I got into the music business.
Right. So let me ask you this. Like when you established your consultancy, was it attending these conferences? That's how you got the word out about yourself? Like how were you promoting yourself as an entrepreneur while also working with these record labels?
That is a great question. And so the way that I established myself is people just started knowing me because, which I think is another huge thing, because they just started seeing me in the building in a bunch of places and
Mhm.
just saying, what's up? And, oh, what you doing? Like, how you know about this? Da, da, da,
Yeah,
da.
yeah.
And I think, and because it just would come together like that because then and it's a lot of optics.
Right.
So if some people would like someone would see me talking to someone else. And so another artist that I have had the pleasure of working with, Ice-T,
Mm.
who huge for my career. So
Yes.
I met way back when I was in college. I met E Swift. Shout out to E Swift.
Yes.
And this was before the Alcoholics. He was just my he was my friend's homie, but he was
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
producer. She's a
Okay.
rapper. And
Yeah.
so I knew E Swift, so I knew him. So then we moved to the new music seminar, and now he's in the Alcoholics.
Right.
So Ice-T, and we were at the Palladium. And you remember Ice-T growing up, he had that song, Back Door of the Palladium, just for class. And so
Mhm.
I had somehow maneuvered, and I was at the back door of the Palladium talking to E Swift, and that's when I met J Ro. And
Uh-huh.
we were, he introduced me. He was like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" And we were talking. Ice-T rolled up and saw them talking to me. So he was like, "Oh, what's up?" So he
Right.
said to me, so I was like, I met Ice-T. Oh my God. That was a huge thing.
So like, when I hear about stories like that, it's amazing to me because, you develop your reputation in the industry, right? It opens up doors for you where you're able to build a client portfolio. But I feel like today in the corporate environment, you almost have to like make sure that you're doing things under certain brands so as not to affect like a conflict of interest. Like if you work in a 9 to 5, but you got a consultancy on the side, they want to make sure that you're not taking your eyes off the ball, off the 9 to 5. They might make you sign a non-compete agreement. Was there any of that going on at the time, or was it just like we ain't gatekeeping here? You
Well,
know, like if you're able to eat based on the great work that you're doing over here, then go ahead and eat with your endeavor as well.
well, I will say that what for me, in terms of making sure that there was no conflict of interest.
Mm-hmm.
I always brought brought everybody to the party together.
There you go.
So so that's why even if they would try to say it, they couldn't, because I was making it benefit them, and everything was kind of coinciding. Because, for example, when I worked at Street Knowledge, as I said, I was just the receptionist,
Mm-hmm.
but I did so much more there. And by that time, I was also on the radio.
Yeah.
So, and I was writing. I was a journalist.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of those opportunities because of T Love, who was my roommate, and we were in a group. But they were people that we knew together.
Mm-hmm.
But then she was very established, so she introduced me to a number of people.
Right.
And she actually introduced me to Julio G.
Mm-hmm.
But then Julio invited me to do the show just off the strength of us. But she did introduce me to him. And so but me being at Street Knowledge, I booked West Side Connection on my radio show, on Julio's radio show. But I was the co-host, and it was on West Side Radio. It was our show together.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I booked them. So how you gonna be mad when
Exactly.
you put the album out that you're on the beat?
You ensured that there was always a mutual exchange of value, that you set the stage for a mutual exchange of value, regardless of what room you stepped into.
That's right. And so then, because I was at Street Knowledge, when I went to Priority and I'm working, and then I'm working West Side Connection, Cube and Mac 10 and WC, they're like, oh, that's the homie. They already knew me. So whatever I was asking them to do, and I worked with Jasmine, shout out to Jasmine, Jasmine Vega, who I also learned so much from, and Betsy. It made it easier because they already knew me. They already knew me, and Cube was already used to me bothering him for interviews and stuff. So it just made everything easier. And then later, as an independent, when I was working with Ice-T and the Legends, I reminded him. When I first met you at the Palladium, he was like, damn. I said, yep, we Swift. And I said, and even further, I used to go to Unity all the time at United Nations. He was like, oh, shit. Because that was their club. Like, they had a club in LA. And I used to help do the list and work with them all the time. So then and I said, and I worked the rock group that he was in.
Oh, body count.
And I worked Body Count. So he was like, oh shit.
Yep.
So then when I'm asking him to do stuff with the Legends, he was like, all right, cool. Because he knew I wasn't going to approach him with some silliness, because I also knew by that time what things he was going to be interested in.
Yes.
So I do think, in my opinion, that there is, in terms of education, in knowing what is expected of you and what you can get out of a situation, that's completely missing now. All
right. So knowing that there's a huge component that's missing, that would be, that there's a void here, right? So what would be that one piece of game, that one piece of knowledge that you would advise someone who's in a position where they're thinking, hey, I want to start my own consultancy. I want to have a consultancy that does, I'll be your publicist, I'll be your manager, I'll be your office manager, like whatever you need, I'll do that. Aside from, the administrative part of it, like forming an LLC and, making sure you got a website and all that good stuff, what would you say to someone just starting out today?
Okay. So number one, I would say to someone starting out today that to work with your friends first. Like, if you have a little homie that's trying to rap or produce or whatever, work with that person, help them accomplish what they want to do. Even if you're just helping them get a post or a repost or something now, which I think is easier, in my opinion, than the way that we had to do it.
Right.
That's where you should start with with the people that you already know. Because then you can work not only very closely with an upcoming artist, and then you can say that you had a crucial part or you played a part in their success, which is priceless cachet.
Bringing it back to sound, and I know you work with different mediums in your spiritual practice with tarot cards and pendulums and things like that. Have you ever tapped into the power of sound itself? I know a lot of folks are into things like sound baths and things like that, or any of that like stuff. I got my Janae Aiko shirt on today. You know what I'm saying? So I know that she's into the crystal balls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And she's built experiences around some of her shows. So you tap into
Mhm.
some of that energy as well?
Oh, absolutely. I
Mhm.
tap into the power of sound all the time
Yes.
because it's a big thing for me, just in terms of what something that I talk about all the time is that being on the same vibrational energy with someone, which
Mhm.
has a big deal. A lot of that is because sound is a vibration. That's
Correct.
what it is.
Yep.
So yeah, to me, I don't necessarily do sound baths for people,
Right.
but for me, I actually do my own form of sound baths
Mhm.
with hip hop.
There you
So for example, we were talking about Smith and Wesson, but
go.
I definitely like Medina is just that tone and that vibration and the way that beat and all of that, that
Hmm.
is a huge part of what I listen to now, what I have been listening to.
And the
And
repetition as well. Sorry to cut you off, but the repetition, I feel like, because I feel like a lot of folks who are casual listeners of hip hop may get a little bit lost, or they end up with the wrong impression about the art of it because maybe they can't decipher the lyrical content, right? But I feel like it's almost intentionally designed in that way in order to force the listener to dig deeper into it and to re-examine it in a repetitive fashion. It almost becomes like a mantra, right? Like Medina, Medina,
that's
Medina,
right.
Medina,
That's
you
right.
know, like
It's
it's
the
like a
word.
mantra, you know, like it's yeah.
But and that's the thing. It's a chant. It's an affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
It's doing all of that. And what happens is when you are, and it's actually it's changing your mindset,
Right.
which
It's like
which is
subliminal
what
reprogramming of the way we've been programmed, which we all know.
100%. That's what it is.
At which point did you incorporate your spiritual practice, because you know you got the website now, you can see the different activations that you offer, doing corporate events, the different types of engagements that you offer your clients. When did you start incorporating that into your business model, and tell the folks about what it is that you currently offer today?
Okay. So, such good questions. I love talking to you. This is so dope.
Yeah.
So, I would say number one, when I started incorporating it into my business model, it came very late for me because for a long time it was they were two extremely separate things.
Correct.
But what I came to the knowledge of self is all of this is me. So, you get what you get. So you're it doesn't make yes, that's right. So it makes no sense to split it because I'm not split into two people. And everybody is, everyone is, I think, a mixture of all your experiences
Mhm.
and your interactions. And, if I try to constantly grow and become a more well-rounded and enlightened person,
Mhm.
so it is too much work to try and split them.
Right.
They're just the same, it's the same thing.
Mm.
And as people of color, what we do a lot, we code switch all the time
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
our conversations, just like you're saying, coming from a corporate background, but then, now you are creating community
Right.
through showing people and through what you're doing and through your actions.
Correct.
So even though you have the corporate background, that's still within you because that's part of your history.
Mhm.
So it makes no sense to try and fight it.
That's
And
right. Oh, that's such an accurate description of where I'm at in my career. I can't even begin to tell you because it's like, how do I take this thing that I discovered a little bit later in life that I found out that I'm good at and that I love it, I'm really passionate about it, but the dream never dies, right? So it's like, how do I take these two things and bring them together? You know?
Which, and you're doing it, and
Yeah.
so that's the whole thing. As you are applying this knowledge that you got from the corporate world, then you
Mhm.
can bring your corporate sponsors in to this community
Correct.
because you're part of both communities,
Right. Right. 100%.
and you always have been.
I love that. I love that. Oh my gosh. All right, so let's fast forward to the present because we got a few minutes left, and I want to make sure that we talk about what's the latest on your skillet, what you got cooking, because my girl's
All right,
always up to some dope shit.
I try.
So Beats, Bud, and Bites. All right. We got to talk about this show because I am already a fan of this radio show. Our names are very similar, right? And I'm very
Yes.
interested to know how this show came about. Salute to Beat Miners Radio. My gosh, it was such a pleasure to just hang out and get to experience a broadcast with them. Talk to me about how this came to be and let the folks know where they can tap in.
All right. So we broadcast every Sunday from Fly Private Social in
Mm-hmm.
Brooklyn.
Salute.
So
Salute Hawaii Mike.
shout out to Hawaii. And that's the same thing. His a big thing with Fly Private Social
Mhm.
is community and about community building. And Hawaii and I have known each other a bajillion years, and we're both West Coast transplants. Meaning he lived in the Bay, I lived in LA, both moved here. And we had known each other for like when we both lived on the West Coast.
Mhm.
He moved here before I did, but so Fly Private Social is all about community. So we broadcast from there. And the way I was invited to join the show by Cynical and Almitra.
Salute.
Love those women for forever. And
Mhm.
we've been friends since we all worked at 88 Hip Hop.
Wow.
We Sin, Almitra, Mecca, Ovita, Jolie, we all worked on this show called Queendom,
Okay.
which, as we say, and I know it, we know it is. It's the first ever all women hip hop podcast, but they weren't called podcasts back then.
Right.
We were just the all female hip hop show on 88 Hip Hop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what it was. But and Mecca actually created Queendom. She came up with the idea.
Amazing.
Mecca and I knew each other from radio because Mecca had been doing radio for forever. She was doing it for a long time. And I was doing radio in LA. And I moved to New York. So then Mecca said she had an idea. She wanted to do a show. She brought us all to Queendom. We all met there. And then Sin and Almitra got asked to do their show on Beat Miners Radio because they were really funny and, they work well together and they're amazing.
Yeah.
And so fast forward, and this was in the 90s. And then they both ended up working full time at 88 Hip Hop and Mecca. But I, like you said, I always had a million jobs. So I would come in and do it after my day job. And then it just, transformed and 88 Hip Hop got a bunch of money. And that was a part of pseudo.com, which was part of the whole internet kind of, when that came to be. But that ended like most internet things did. And so now when Sin and Almitra decided to launch the show, they wanted to have the Fly Auntie Collective, which I'm a part of. So it's me, Alana, aka Queens Gets the Money, the
Yeah.
Hip Hop Twins, and Jazzy Love and Jasmine, the two, Jasmine, our producer. And so it's the two Jasmines and Jazz, who is the Herbal Hoe, we're all on the show together. So we are a collective and we broadcast every Sunday from 2 to 4 on Beat Miners Radio. Please make sure that you listen to us.
Yes.
Just like the show says. We talk, and it's a radio show. It's not a podcast.
That's right. There's
So
a
you don't
difference.
see
There's
us
a difference.
because you don't see us. You can hear us
Mm-hmm.
post content but we play music.
That's right.
Always does an amazing job of killing the music. Incredible music. So we talk about hot topics, what's happening, and then we play the beats. And then, of course, we engage we are purveyors of fine cannabis.
That's right.
So we will be, and we'll talk about what we are smoking on, what the terps are, what the flavor profile is, what the strain is. And then, of course, it's bites. So we eat. And we have different.
And the perfect place to eat too, when you got Hawaii Mike downstairs in the kitchen, whipping up something beautiful. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So, and we do experiences there. We had the Infinity listening party there, and then we also did an album release party there. Both times the guys they performed
That's where we
at the
met.
listening session.
That's
Yep.
where we met for the first time, the Infinity
That's where
listening
we
party.
met.
Let me tell you something, yo. That was like, I think the first time I've ever been out in the wild, and you came up to me and like, "You're Jersey City Jeff, aren't you?" And I was like, "Holy shit!" I'm fucking.
That's right. Well, because I reckon, and that's the thing, with bringing it back to what we were talking, about. I absolutely just rolled up on you, but it's because we were friends online. Because we knew all that's how I discovered you, because you were posting and you knew all my people. So I was like, oh, this dude is
This guy's part of the community.
part of the crew. And I loved your content. There was something about it that so genuine, so genuine. And I feel that that's missing a lot in terms, like on a lot of social media.
Yeah.
Because people, people
like me all the time,
and they do stuff for the gram,
Right. Yeah.
But I don't come from that. Like from the generation I come from, you don't even want people to know what you're doing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like with my business like that, you don't need to know where I'm at. I'm
Mhm.
doing, but I think you and a number of other people are able to do it in a way where it feels inclusive rather than invasive.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much because it's definitely something that I think I've always done unconsciously, like you should, like I've always treated it as I'm doing this for me, not to stunt or to paint a picture about myself, You use some of those tactics because we all got to promote ourselves, especially if we're cooking some good stuff, but there's a line between overdoing it, and doing it too much. And for me, I like to share. I feel like my platform is everybody's platform. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you'll be hard pressed to find me like putting up like selfies too much. Maybe once in a while if I'm feeling myself, right? Like everybody's guilty of that.
And that's what I mean. What I like about the way that you do it is that you can tell that you're doing it from the perspective of sharing.
Yes.
So I wanted, and it's funny because when I saw your stuff, I felt like we knew each other. I got to know him because he knows all the people. Like he knows all the people.
Right.
But then I was like, no, I guess we've never met. So I wanted to meet you anyway.
I love
so
it.
then when I saw you there, I was like, oh, it's Jeff. Hey, what's up?
I love it. I love it. I think that's a perfect segue for us to get up out of here. You know what I'm saying? I really appreciate you taking the time, being so generous, being so flexible with your time. I'm really looking forward to spending the summer up in Jersey City. I know we're gonna have like so many opportunities to be in the same space and just vibe and be in community with each other. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And thank you. Just thank you for your contributions to the culture. Thank you for trying to incorporate healing into this culture, which is something that is so very much needed.
It is.
What's next? They leave us with this. What's next for you?
All right. Well, number one, as I was saying, you have to come and be on our show.
Okay.
That's
I'm down for that. Count me in.
Immediate stuff, intuitive wise, I'm working on my own show because I want to have my own show like this where I'm able to showcase other intuitives and to build with people like that.
Yes.
PR wise, Gats, new video, White Bronco is coming out, gearing
Okay.
up for release. That's going to be huge. That's coming this week. Fee is doing a rap battle in Atlantic City,
Mhm.
actually April 2nd. So that's coming up. Manny's on tour. Hot Boys
Yeah,
reunion.
that's right. That's gonna be epic.
Insane.
Yeah,
That's those shows are crazy and they've been happening. And then Smith and Wesson, they are in Paris
that's
next.
right.
Yeah, headlining the festival over there. And then we're gonna be doing a really dope Smith and Wesson hip hop trivia event at
Wow.
Wax. That's gonna be off the chain.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah,
Lots of wonderful stuff to look forward to.
yes.
You actually, when you mentioned Manny Fresh, I remember one quick question I forgot to ask you when we were talking about how the education component is missing these days. You know, I see folks like Master P out there who's like having his own course content that's out there for entrepreneurs and things like that. Do you think we need more of that, like what P's doing?
100,000%.
Because I think
And
that's great.
no, yes, and just to throw it in there real quick. So number
Mhm.
one, I also when I was at Priority, I worked Master P. I
There you
worked.
go. Of course you did. Of course you did.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I definitely did a little bit of work on the first Jay-Z album too, which was
Wow.
because they were distributed through Priority.
That's right. That's
But
right.
and then to bring it all back around, like the infinity symbol,
There you go.
another person that I work with, um, Professor Herzog, aka Tokyo Ream, he just got back from Japan.
Hmm.
He is creating curriculum. So that is coinciding, like it's across the board, but
Hmm.
he's creating curriculums with people. And then Rhythms of Healing,
Hmm.
another company, they are also uh, doing a lot of creating, but they're creating specifically for counselors and using hip hop as a healing technique and practice.
Amazing.
So, right, because that's what it is.
Right.
And that's what I mean. It's so yes, there needs to be an emphasis on education.
Absolutely. You know, fun fact, Neil deGrasse Tyson,
Uh-huh.
his nephew got his doctorate, his PhD in hip hop as a platform for conflict resolution. Isn't that
'Cause that's
amazing?
yes, because that is what it does. Music brings people together.
That's right. It's the universal language, baby.
I love that.
Yep.
That is so dope.
That's super dope.
Is he a rapper?
I'm not sure. I became aware of that fact listening to Destroy's show because he interviewed Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I
Of
picked
course
up
he
on
did.
that. I was like, "That's amazing, bro."
No, that's so dope. Well, and that's another thing too, just to, kind of like wrap it up. When I
Yep.
saw Tony was saying like Z, it's so amazing. Like after all these years, like we still here, we still doing it.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
he said that on Saturday.
I know.
You know, this past Saturday, but it is true.
It is. It is true. It is true, man. And we still gonna be here, man. That's one thing I told D when I
Right.
called into his show last. I believe his birthday. His birthday's in June.
Yeah.
I called in, man, and I told him, I'm like, listen, bro. Like in another 50 years, when hip hop is 100 years old, I'm gonna be the one to say I was there. You know what I'm saying? So, I
Right.
love it. I love it. Yo, Z, thank you so much for joining us.
You.
I'm looking forward to part two. I can't wait to see you this summer. And ladies and gentlemen, this is another episode of Beats, Rhymes, y Comunidad, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.